everyone, Xandero Gaming coming at y'all with another video. And in today's video, I want to just try and give everyone a rundown on, a couple of key cards that are coming out for the new Bleach Volume 2 set, as well as I'm going to give some of my deck profiles. Now, these may not be like the most competitive decks or anything like that. I just wanted to share, what decks I'm interested in from the set and what I will probably build. But I do not have the time to do what I did with Black Clover and go in and grab every deck from the set and give you guys a very detailed breakdown and overview of what all the decks do and the list. Just because, since this is a Volume 2 set, I would really have to do every card deck for Bleach, and that ended up being 10 decks. So I was like, okay, this is definitely a lot to do, so I'm not going to do that, but instead I'm going to try to do something that's a little more useful for everyone else. And it is going to be to try to, call out a couple of really good important cards from the set that I think, can support other decks that have already been out into the game, which is what this first page of cards is right here. And then, like I said, I'll go and show you guys some of my deck builds that I plan on doing. Some being more competitive and some being things for fun, right? But getting into these cards, what I really want to show is that we are getting a brand new Kenpachi, right? Kenpachi gets a lot of support, and it is definitely one of the decks I am most excited about to build in the this Bleach Volume 2 set. We got a 0-drop Kenpachi, which is really, really awesome, because not only are we getting a 0-drop Kenpachi, we are getting a new big Kenpachi, which is a Raid Kenpachi, and this card is really, really strong. I'm super excited about this card. These are two new cards from the set, and they are cards that directly, impact the deck for you. Because now I think that if you want to build just a straight Kenpachi deck, which is how I'm going to be playing Kenpachi, you can do that for sure. I do think the more competitive way to build Green Bleach is still focusing around Toshiro. And then if you want to add in these Kenpachis, you can do so, right? But this Kenpachi is really, really good. It rains on top of Kenpachi. It's not affected by BP reducing abilities, and it will always have impact. So it's like you're raiding on top of a body to get a 4K impact. Now, everything else is very determining, right? It says if the base card of this rated character is 4 or more required energy, it gains all the abilities listed below. If this character leaves the field due to one of your opponent's abilities or battle, you get to play out the card underneath it from your sideline, which is really, really strong, really good effect. And then it also says when played, this character gains 1000 BP and damage 2 until the end of the turn. So if you raid it on top of a 4 cost, the game is giving you back some value by giving you damage 2 and 1000 BP, and you always have the impact. So it's going to make your opponent want to block this and still take the 1 damage instead of taking that 2 damage. And with that 5000 BP threshold, you are going to clear a lot of bodies. This is definitely the card I am most hyped for from the set, and definitely one I think that you guys should look out for. Now, with that being said, let's stay on green. And I do think that this Shinji Hiroko is a really good card for green Bleach decks as well. It does cost you 2 action points, but he says, when played, choose up to one of the following. If on the front line, choose 2 characters with 2 less BP, and whose BPs are the same on your opponent's front line, and sideline them. So it is a good card I think you can tech into some Toshi decks, because now you can try to get some clear power in Toshi, which I think will help it out a lot. Because one thing with Toshi is that some people are going to try to rush you down with your green Bleach decks. I think that this character is really, really good because it gives you some coverage early in the game if you don't find your Toshis. But it also says choose up to 1 character with 3000 more BP on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting, and then switch this character to active. So what you get to do is if they have a big body out, you get to play the Shinji down, tap down the big body that is giving you an issue that maybe your Toshiros can't swing over, and now you get to swing in, and it is really, really strong. Because a lot of times what will happen when you play Toshi is, yes, you are going to tap everything down, but then they're probably going to raid on top of a body, which lets them move it up, and now this Shinji can answer that body for the next turn, being able to let you swing in for game. I do think that this is a really, really good card. It's 4000 BP. It is going to be a really good tech for green decks. Now, staying on with green, I do think that this Rangiku, she is so amazing. I love this character. She is awesome for Toshi. Now, she's 3 energy, 1 action point, 3000 BP. She's a draw trigger in life. And she says, when played, if Toshi is on your field, play up to 1 green character card with 2 or less required energy and 1 AP cost from your hand, set to resting onto your field. This is so strong. This is probably the best support for straight Toshi out of everything from the set, because now, if you have a Toshi on your field, say you're already into your Ray Toshi and you want to do your play to go into another one, well, you can do this to play down a 0-drop Toshi and then raid into it. I do think that this card is amazing because you can also play it on your front line, give you a good 3k body, it gives you a draw card, and it generates your energy. I think that this is a standout card from the set, and it is just a common. Now, this is just a more generic green card for green decks that I think people can tech into their decks, and I think that it is a really good card. We finally get a raid for Sanjin, our favorite wolf doggo boy. This does raid on top of your Sanjins, and it has, you know, at the start of your turn, place the top card of this rated character into your sideline. It has nullify impact, which is really good too, and it says this character cannot be switched to resting or returned to your hand by your opponent's abilities, and when played, you draw 2 cards. So it's a good consistency piece for any green deck if you're wanting to play that. I do think that this card alone kind of helps out like Unionarena decks a little bit more now, because now that this gives you a little bit better of draw and consistency for the deck, and then it also gives you a body that your opponent can't answer very well, right? Because it can't be switched to resting and your opponent can't bounce it. Now they can blow it up if they need to, but then they are wasting a kill spell on it, which is not bad for you. I do think that this is a really good card for green, and I do think that green is one of the biggest beneficiaries of this set. Now going on to what I'm trying to touch on are some new cards that are really important, and then also new cards that I think support older decks. And I do think that this Baz B really supports the Stern Ritter kind of archetype deck for a lot of these yellow decks. It is a really good card, being 2 energy, 1 action point, and it is a 3000 BP body, so it can be one of the 2 drops that you run in the deck to give you some early power. It is also an active trigger in life, which is welcome in yellow decks, and it says activate main if on the front line, place 1 card from your hand to your sideline. Once per turn, choose 1 character 50% more BP on your opponent's field, and it loses 1000 BP until the end of the turn. So this lets you be able to swing into these big bodies that your opponent has, but not only that, since you get to reduce the BP down if it's over 1500 or more, now you're putting it in range to be able to get tapped down with some of your other effects, because a lot of the yellow tap down cards only let you touch things that you know are 3000 or less. So this Baz B is really good for those decks, and it is an awesome card for sure. Now, going on to purple, I just want to touch up some cards that I think are good support for old purple things. We got a 1-drop Renji from this set that is just a win play, draw 1, then place 1 card from your hand to your sideline. I do think that this helps support Renji rush style decks. I do think it's a little unfortunate that it doesn't have a trigger, but if Renji is one of your favorite characters and you like to revolve your purple Bleach decks around him, then this is a welcome card for the set to help give Renji decks a little more support. With that being said, we also have a Byakuya and a Rukia doing the same thing, supporting their archetypes from before, because now you have another 2-drop 2500 BP Byakuya. Now it doesn't have a trigger, but it says when played, choose it 1 character opponent's front line, and it loses 1000 BP, which is really helpful in those Byakuya decks. So I do think that this is good support for Byakuya. And along with Byakuya, we do have a new Rukia, which this supports a lot of different decks because this card is so good. 2 energy, 1000 or 3000 plus BP for 2 energy, 1 action point. That is really good for aggressive plays, and it gives you another raid target. It is an active trigger, and it says during your turn, if you place a card from your hand into your sideline this turn, this character gains 500 BP, which is really good, right? Because now you're gonna have 3500 BP. You're gonna be trashing cards in this deck. All the versions, different types of version of the purple Bleach decks. It is a welcome card for sure. Now, the last card I want to touch on is going to be the Senjumaru. Now, this is a new card that we are getting. It raids on top of Senjumaru's, and this is going to be an important card that I think a lot of people are going to play and be very divisive. When you build purple Bleach now, I think it is really determining if you want to run this Squad Zero package, right? The Squad Zero package is a couple of the Squad Zero cards that are new, and I think if you run this package, it means that you run the Senjumaru, and it focuses more on Squad Zero and the new Ichigo. And I'm touching on this Senjumaru instead of that Ichigo, mainly because this is going to be the key card that determines if you're building based around Squad Zero, right? And this card is a 4 energy, 1 action point, 4000 BP raid on Senjumaru. And when played, place any number of your squad 0 affinity cards from your hand into your removal. Choose up to one character 25 less BP on your opponent's front line and sideline it. For each card you place from your hand into removal, add 1,000 that you get to increase this to. So you don't actually have to trash anything. Once you raid this character, you can go ahead and pop a 2,500 BP or less. It's only if you want to increase this popping effect can you add it up. I do think that this can be a really divisive card in purple decks now, because if you really want to play and mix it up, I think that purple has a lot of different ways now, having this Squad Zero engine in it, that you can add to different decks, add just to the new stuff. Now you can kind of just, you know, do whatever you want with purple, and I do think the Senjumaru is a really, really good card from the set. Those are all the like key cards and new updated cards I, wanted to share with you guys and go over, but I do want to, go over some of my deck list. Now, this is going to be the purple Bleach deck that I am going to be using and playing with. You guys don't need to see me all big over there. Well, let's see. I'll zoom in. I'll just zoom in on all of them. This is going to be the list I'm going to be running, and you can see here I'm not running very many new cards. I am running the Orihime and this new Rukia, which I do think is really, really important for the deck, because it just, gives you another Rukia that you can raid on. Now, Rukia is one of my favorite characters from the show. We don't have an Orihime raid, right? Or I just will run a Rukia Orihime list, but we don't have her, but I do want to include the Orihimes because I do think it is a really good card. But the main thing that I'm adding, that I'm going to be updating my purple Bleach deck with, is really just this Rukia. I looked into a couple of other cards, and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the deck, and this is probably going to be the way that I run it. And I think that this Rukia will help curve out the deck a lot now, because it gives it another 3,000 BP body, while not having to add another brick in the deck, because it is also a trigger, keeping your triggers above 40, being at a nice 44. So this is really the only card I am using to update my purple Bleach deck, but I would appreciate the tips in the comment below. What are you going to change to your... You can see I don't run any Ringis or anything like that. I try to keep mine based around Rukia. Now, this is probably not the most competitive way to play the deck, but Rukia is one of my favorite characters from the show, and so I just try to focus on her. Now, going to Yellow Bleach, I do have a couple friends that have Yellow Bleach built, and I do think that, Bambietta does have her own deck, and I will go over this later as well, but I do think that now this deck has a lot of good support added to it from the new set, mainly being this card here, which is going to be this Uryu. Sorry. 3 energy, 1 action point is 3,000 plus BP, double energy generator, which helps the deck out a lot to be consistent with double energy, because now you have him and your Yhwachas. And it just says activate main once per turn, or activate main, place 1 card from your hand to your sideline once per turn. Choose one of the abilities listed below. If Yhwachas is on your field, you may choose all instead, right? So this directly helps support Yhwachas decks, right? And you choose one character on both your frontline energy line and swap them, and this character gains 1,000 BP till the end of the turn, which is really, really good. You being able to swap your characters out, really strong card and welcome support for the deck. This is my list that I'm going to be using for this deck. I do think that this one card alone helps make this deck really, really consistent, and this is the package that I am going with, to play this deck. I will link all these decks in the description of the video for you guys to see all my different builds. But going on to the new deck that everyone is probably wanting to talk about, this is going to be the new Bambi deck. Now, we all know what Bambi does. If you do need me to touch up on it, she just raids on Bambi. When played, if it's your turn, choose up to 1 resting character on your opponent's front line and sideline it, which is really, really good, because you have color triggers that help you keep them tapped down, and then you're going to be able to rest it on your turn. Now, unfortunate that if you do raid this in life, you don't get this effect because it has to be your turn, but it is all the other cards that support her. This is definitely an older card, and it feels a little out of sorts with the deck, but it is not the main card, because we do have Giselle, who is the main card in the deck now. I think 4 energy, 2 action point. When played, if you act upon total of 3 or more other Bambi's affinity, zombie, or Bambi ability cards on your field, draw 2 cards and place 2 cards from your hand into your sideline. So a lot of cycle to be able to get the cards into your sideline that you want, and then activate main if on the front line once per turn. Sideline 1 character on your field without zombie affinity. If you do, play up to 1 yellow card with zombie affinity from your sideline set to active onto your field. So she lets you sideline your characters to play the zombies back out, and all the zombies have really strong effects. One of the main notes being your new color trigger for the deck, and it is the Bambietta. The new Bambietta, really cool art on it here. 4,000 BP. When played, this character is played with the ability on one of your characters. You get to draw a card. So you play her out, draw a card, activate main, pay 1 AP. Once per turn, this character gains impact 1. Really strong card. So you're going to pop things, then play out the Bambi, get the impact, which is really, really good. And one thing to note, the impact does not stack. So if you do try to raid the Bambi on top of this Bambi, you will lose that. That's not what you want to do. This is another one of your finishers in the game. You have the raid Bambi and this Bambi now, which are really good. And then all the other cards, I'm not going to go into every card in all these decks. I am trying to go through them quick, but you're going to get effects based off of if you play them with the effects of your Giselle, and then they have searchers in the deck. It is a really good kind of deck that kind of reminds me of what Mahito does. If you've ever played that purple JJK deck, it is kind of getting value off of, you know, sidelining your old things to get value, but it looks to be a really fun, cool deck, and this is the deck list for you guys. Now, going on, this is one of my pet decks, and like I said, I do think that, you know, Unohana is one of my favorite characters, and I do think that she got support in this set because now the Unohana Yamamoto deck is no longer a dream. You think that it has a little legs to stand on, mainly behind the back of the Sanjins. I do think that these Sanjis are going to be what carry the deck because now with the Unohana, you will have another raid target. Now, I didn't want to just throw the Toshio raids in here, but if you really wanted to, you could just get rid of these Sunshuis and run the Toshi package, and you'll have a lot more raids and a lot better of time. But I do like to be a little more thematic about my decks, and I wanted to focus on these two here. But like I said, you could switch this out and then just run the Toshi raids, and I do think that that would be a little bit better of a deck. But I do like the fact of running 4 of these Sunshuis that are damage 2 and getting to the card and being able to move them up from your backline and move them up with the Yamamoto will be really, really strong plays. Being able to swing in, say you have 2 of these on the backline, you raid your Yamamoto, now you get to move them up and swing multiple swings in. That is going to really put your opponent in a tough spot. Now, this I think is the only card that I included that is a new card from the new set, but I think it does a lot for the deck. No, here we do. Yeah, this guy. The Ikaku. This is just your draw 1 trash ones. I think that this is another key card that can help Yamamoto have some legs to stand on because now you have a nice, you know, cycle through your deck card that can help you out a lot. I do think that green has a lot of cool ways to, you know, toolbox through its stuff, which is going to be a lot of fun to do. I look forward to playing with Yamamoto. That is the deck list I have for him, but I have already done a deck profile video for my Kenpachi deck, so I won't go into this one too much, but like I said, I do think this, you know, you can focus on Kenpachi if you want to. I know a lot of people, you know, Toshiro is in such a good spot, right? But I was trying to show you guys some lists that didn't include Toshiro because I do think that Toshiro is going to be the main way people build, you know, green Bleach decks, and I just wanted to showcase some other cards and show people just that there are different ways you can build green, and there are some really cool, strong cards, especially, you know, having the new 0 drop, and this guy's really, really good too, being able to be a low body 0 drop that can help you later, and the Akaku, like I mentioned before, drawing and trashing cards. But this deck is mainly focused around just trying to support Kenpachi and letting Kenpachi be the star of the show. Now, the one deck that I will be building that is definitely going to be kind of a big meta deck, and I will spend a little more time going over this one, is going to be the blue Bleach deck. Now, this is really a blue Bleach toolbox deck, and you can build this however you would like to. I wanted to focus on a couple of Renjis, and like I said, Rukia is one of my favorite characters in the show, so I am maxing out on the Rukias, but I am not running the Byakuya on here, which could be a wrong or bad thing. But like I said, I try to be a little thematic with unionarena because it is one of the best things about the game. But this deck is super, super consistent. It has, you know, enough triggers. I could probably bump the triggers up. I do like to try to stay at 40, but it has 39. The main thing is I'm trying to run some of the Zangetsu package. That's why this deck is actually really hard to build, depending on like how you want to build the deck. There are so many different things that you could do with blue, and that's why I think it is a fun deck. Now, I don't think that the blue deck would probably see as many tops as your old purple Bleach decks, mainly because these blue decks are very pilot and deck building oriented, right? Because you have to know all your different lines and all the different things that you could do with your build of the deck and how you answer different people's stuff. And I just chose to do a little bit of everything. But if you wanted a more competitive, deck, I do think that most people run the Byakuya's, a bunch of these Renjis, and a lot of different things like that. So there is, countless different ways you can play this deck, and I do think that this is going to be the way I play it, because I do want to focus on a couple of Renjis and these Ichigos. I think that this art is really cool in the Ichigo, for sure, but I do think that a lot of people will be playing the Byakuya's. There's going to be a lot of different ways that you can play this deck, but I do think that one of the main cards in all these decks is going to be the new Rukia, and I will touch on it pretty quickly. When played, if on the front line, choose up to one character on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting. If it is your turn and there is a character with 2 or more base EP on your front line, you get to keep it resting until the character would leave. This character would leave the front line, which is really, really strong. Like, you get to bring this Rukia out. If you've already played the Renji this turn, or the Ichigo, your other cards that are 2 action points, then now you get to keep it tapped down forever, which is really, really strong. I do think that the Byakuya version of the deck does lend to you being able to do that a little more consistently, but you really don't mind just being able to switch something resting anyways to get in the swings. But if you do get to keep it tapped down as long as she's on the board, I do think that that makes for a even better way to tap it down. The Ichigo just being one of the key ways how you're able to swing other your opponent's stuff, and then the Renji offering you the impact negate, and then being able to come out active if you do have 2 or more base AP character on the board. Really, really good. I think this deck can do a lot of different things, and you definitely need to look out for this deck. I might just put my build, based around Rukia because she is my favorite. But I want to know what all of you think. What is like the deck that you're most excited about coming out in this set? I know that a lot of people have been waiting for this. I think that it is such, a great set. All the art is really, really cool. It brings a lot of life into the game, because I do think that now every color in Bleach is very viable and has a good, if not rogue, to meta tier deck that you can perform well in your tournaments. And we'll see, so probably a lot of these decks show up in these bigger tournaments that we have coming up later in the year. But I will leave a link to all of my deck profiles on here. Like I said, I just wanted to share some information with everyone, get some coverage on the cards. I don't have the time to go through all the different deck profiles for this, because I do need to do my look out for me to do the videos where I try to give all the decks ratings and stars, and I'll be working on that for the Black Clover decks. And if I have the time, I will do the Bleach decks. I'm definitely really, really excited about Kenpachi. I think he is a straight G, and his deck is going to be really good. I could just be coping though. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm coping on Kenpachi. I think that he's going to be really strong. But I appreciate everyone hanging out with me today. Please leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.